Greetings, historians, and welcome back to House of Ideas Historian. I love Marvel, and I love Marvel history. Not only do I love the heroes, but I love the villains. I went over right here, Ultron, my all-time favorite Marvel villain, and right here, Taskmaster, one of my favorite Avengers villains that's going to be featured in the Black Widow movie. Very exciting stuff. Both these characters I love because of their history, because they have been around for so long. But let me tell you, a great Marvel villain does not have to be an old Marvel villain. Today, I want to talk about a character that is relatively new to me because I haven't read a whole lot about him until about a year ago. But let me tell you, I love this guy so much. So, I'm going to ask you, who is the Maker? I'm going to tell you about him right now. Before we can really talk about who the Maker is, we need to talk about the concept of the multiverse for just a second. Comic books are full of crazy concepts and world building. In a genre filled with time travel, what-if stories, infinity stones, and cosmic cubes, there are many different realities. This is called the multiverse. Untold amounts of realities and untold amounts of Earths. Each and every one different. Some drastically so, some not so much. I've mentioned before that Marvel is one long story. The longest running story in human history. 1939 to 2020 is one long, cohesive story. This story primarily takes place on Earth 616. When you pick up just about every Marvel comic, it has to do with Earth 616, the main Marvel universe. In fact, the MCU is part of the Marvel Multiverse as well. It's categorized as Earth 1999-99. The events of the Secret Wars in 2015 acted as a consolidation of all the wayward stories, as the multiverse as we knew it was destroyed. But we'll get to that just a little bit later. The 90s were a dark time for the comic community as a whole. Marvel, who had previously dominated the genre in the late 80s and early 90s, were now at a low that we hadn't seen since the 50s. Marvel's previous key to success had been their continuity. Nearly 60 years of stories that all build on each other. Well, after these dark days, Marvel decided they wanted to go in a different route. They felt that teens wouldn't be able to get the full effect of the entire story that lasted for 60 years. In the year 2000, they brought in the now legendary Brian Michael Bendis. Bendis was afraid that he was brought in to write the last Marvel story. What ended up happening was he was building something completely new. Bendis had a task to not only write new stories, but to build an entire new universe. This new universe retold the origins that we know and love, but to tell them in a new, modern light. This was the Ultimate Universe, and was dubbed Earth 1610. In this new universe, we got to see the Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimate Spider-Man, a story that eventually led to the creation of Miles Morales. The Ultimates, who are the Avengers of the Ultimate Universe, and the Ultimate Fantastic Four. And this is where our story begins. The Ultimate Universe Fantastic Four stayed relatively true to the first family of Marvel. They did have a few differences though, As all the Ultimate lines, their origins were modernized to fit the 2004 time period. One of the big differences is the ages of the characters. The Fantastic Four in the Ultimate Universe are all teenagers, not the adults that we knew from 616. The Ultimate Fantastic Four showed us a lot of changes to the Fantastic Four mythos. Child genius Reed Richards is well versed in all areas of science. As part of a school project, he made a teleporter. Well, this caught the eye of a government think tank that was based out of the Baxter Building in downtown New York. There he met Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm, all teens around his own age. Unfortunately, there was a malfunction in the teleporter and sent them to the negative zone. They were able to make their way back, but after their trip, they developed superpowers. Reed Richards was able to stretch his body in many fantastic ways. Sue Storm was able to render herself invisible and project shields. Johnny Storm was able to manipulate fire and fly, while Ben Grimm became the ever-loving Thing. My personal favorite of their adventures is when they found themselves in a zombie-infested Earth. This actually is the start of the Marvel Zombie storyline. Overall, these changes were well appreciated by creators, fans, and critics alike. The Ultimate Fantastic Four line lasted for 5 years and 60 issues. With the conclusion of the Ultimatum crossover, we did see the team disband and go their separate ways. Death and trauma affected Reed drastically. The younger Richards did not deal with the trauma too well, unfortunately. Reed developed a darker worldview. Expansion of the human knowledge no longer suited him, choosing to turn to personal gain. Ultimate Enemy number 1 sees parents' home and current residence destroyed. There were no apparent survivors. However, in Ultimate Mystery, it turns out Reed was behind the attack and faked his own death. In Ultimate Doomsday, we see Reed face off against his former teammates and various superheroes. We learn that Reed no longer wants anything to do with his home dimension, a dimension that has given him nothing but pain and death. He'd rather see it destroyed so that he can find a new dimension to make and call his own. The combined efforts of the gathered superheroes is enough to defeat Richards. However, Ultimate Fallout is where we meet Richards again. It is revealed that he survived the last fight and was trapped in the negative zone. In Ultimate Comics Ultimates, we meet Reed Richards for who he really is. He is a hero no more. It's revealed that Reed spent 1,000 years in the distant future, learning everything that he could, but never aging. It was here where he stretched his head so that he could increase his intelligence even more. He no longer goes by Reed Richards. He is now none other than the Maker. Despite being a villain, his intellect is still to be revered. He's been called upon a few times in defense of the world. When the 616 Galactus found his way to the 1610 universe, it was the Maker who ultimately defeated Galactus by sending him to the negative zone so that he could starve. When the incursions began in 2015, leading up to the Secret Wars, Nick Fury approached the Maker to try to save the Earth. Unfortunately, the incursions could not be stopped. The Maker was able to survive the destruction of 1610 by use of his life raft. He brought along the wayward 616 Cabal to Battleworld with him. Working with his 616 counterpart, the Maker and Reed Richards planned on how to best take down God Emperor Doom. In the final hour, the Maker was able to best Reed by de-evolving him into a monkey. However, Owen Reese, the Molecule Man, stepped in and turned the Maker into a pepperoni pizza. This is the last we see of the Maker for a while. Now, with the conclusion of the Secret Wars events, we see Reed Richards in a new role. He is now in charge of rebuilding the entire multiverse yet again. Apparently, Reed saw fit to restore the Maker into the all-new, all-different 616 universe. Because we see him yet again in the new Avengers Idea Mechanics. He has a few appearances in the all-new, all-different Marvel. And honestly, I hope to see him for a long time still. So many of Marvel's characters and Marvel's villains are steeped in history of 80 years. The Maker is such a fascinating character to me because we get to see what happens if Reed Richards turns bad. And he's really not that old of a villain, but he's made waves in the Marvel Universe. Reed Richards is the smartest man on Earth. Think just for a moment what it would be like if that intellect is turned against humanity. Honestly, it's quite terrifying. Making this video has given me a whole new appreciation for the Marvel Ultimate Universe. It has always been an area of Marvel that I've just not been well versed in, but I really want to get in there and read some of these stories firsthand. Reading the Maker in the New Avengers and in Infamous Iron Man and then in Venom has been amazing. Reading him in my favorite event, Secret Wars, was truly a treat and just kept me thinking, how did Reed Richards become this evil, maniacal being? Well, I gave you an overview, but please go and read those comics. I'm adding them to my list. I want to read the Ultimate Universe because I want to know firsthand who is the Maker. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Do me a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe for all future content. Hit the bell notification so you know when my videos pop up as soon as they do. Thank you guys so much. Share with your friends. You can hit me up on my socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Excelsior, true believers. Till next time.